Hello, everybody, and this is the last Brexit on the left for the Left Wing Propaganda Podcast.
Well, I woke up this morning with a head full of poison and a sneaking suspicion that the end is coming soon. So I pulled back the curtains and I looked out the window, only to discover that my fears are coming true. Yeah, it's true. Now we're standing at the end of the world, my friend, and there's nothing we can do about it now. Yeah, we're standing at the end of the world, my friend. Gonna watch it all burn down.
Howdy, folks. How you doing? My name's Dick Coughlin. This is the Left Wing Propaganda Podcast. This is your weekly roundup of whatever the fuck I feel like talking about in about 45 minutes. And it's January the 30th, 2020, which means this is the last... Actually, speaking of which, it's about 26 hours. Brexit, after all these many, many years, will finally be happening. And I'll get onto that in a bit. But the last podcast, you might remember, I opened with some interesting fan mail, some feedback from various people, interesting people with interesting takes, and I was sent a little bit more, and hopefully, if I generate enough interest in this podcast, I'll get more of this, and I can do more stuff like this at the start. So, because I think it's important, it's not just my voice that is heard; it's the voice of you, the people, because apparently you know what's fucking best, don't you? So, if you want to help do that, you can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Google, whatever the fucking hell, a million and one other platforms, I don't know. And you can support my podcast and my YouTube channel on Patreon, or just make a donation via PayPal. Also, just interesting news. I'll get more onto this in a later date, but the aim will be, hopefully, it will be soon, after February. I'm going to be doing I'll be doing one of these podcasts a week, or 4 a month. It might not be one a week. You know what I'm like with keeping a schedule. But after March, I will only 2 of the podcasts will be available for public consumption. Maybe even 1. If you want to actually hear all the podcasts, all 4 podcasts every month, then you're going to have to be a supporter on Patreon. Doesn't even have to be for a huge amount. Just as little as $1 a pledge on Patreon will get you access to all the podcasts. Now, I know I'm going to get a lot of backlash to this, but I'm in a position, folks, where I, unfortunately, if people are willing to pay, I need the money at the moment, and so that's the position I'm in. Now, hopefully, we can get to a point, or I can get to a stage where I can make the podcast available for general consumption, all the episodes. But for now, that's the situation. I'll get more on that, more details on that following. But anyway, so I got a message from a guy called Johnny Sunday, and he's laid it out flat for us here, folks. So I just want let's see what you make of this. Politically correct prigs and cancel culture crybabies are not going to solve the problem of prejudice. People have been generalising about one another for millennia. And they have. Do you know what I like about that sentence? Is it is the most generalising sentence I think you could possibly state, isn't it? Because he's generalising all people that have ever existed. You know. And they have rarely been nice about it. I don't know why this matters. The fact that we've done something for a millennia, therefore it's relevant. You don't deal with bias by walking on eggshells so as not to offend people. It must be brought to the surface in all of its heinous forms. Once exposed, so he thinks that we should be more encouraging of people who are racists or homophobes or just general, bigoted, hateful, whatever you want, any kind of nasty, right wing, fascist, misogynistic bigot. They can just, we should be more encouraging. So you can express yourself. Okay, so we've got that. So it's brought to the surface. Okay, once exposed, it should be laughed out of existence. Those that didn't learn the error in their thinking would also be laughed out of the conversation. Wait, so you're saying that that it's wrong that, we're not going to get rid of prejudice by having bigots and prejudiced people walking on eggshells, scared to express their opinion. Instead, we should encourage them to express their opinions more openly and freely, and when they do so, we should mock and ridicule them until they either stop believing these things out of shame or out of fear of ridicule, or they just they'll just be banished and cast off out of the general polite society. So, in other words, we'll end up. Your solution is for us to bring racism to the surface so we can send it right back to where it already is. I'm seeing. I think we could cut out the middleman here, Johnny. I don't wish to suggest. I'm not. Don't get me wrong. The idea of mocking and ridiculing bigoted, prejudiced people. Hey, it's my bread and butter, my friend. But I don't see why we can't just sort of stick where we are. Those that didn't learn, we love the conversation. People don't offend when they're not given the time or attention to be offensive. So we pay them, we don't give them any time or attention. Right. It's kind of difficult when they've got newspaper columns or TV shows or podcasts or YouTube channels with millions of subscribers, or they're in the government, wouldn't you say? I realise that some people have been shit on more than others in this world. Oh, isn't that nice of you, Johnny? It may not be fair, but we need to get over this politically correct bullshit and just move on. What we need to get over what? But isn't mocking? I thought that was what all the this. I thought that's what politically correct comedy, like comedians who mock, the people you're talking about are the ones who are the PC. This woke comedy. A little less insecurity and a little more laughter, and we'll have this bullshit licked much faster. Hey, that rhymes. Well, thanks for that, Johnny. I mean, I don't have anything to add, my friend. I mean, I think you've pretty much nailed it. And in the spirit of what what Johnny said there, I'm going to carry on with the show. But before I get on to it, I do want to say this. There's one thing that's been in the news today. If you're someone who's looking for something positive that you can cheer up, you can feel a little bit better about. I know there isn't too much, but we have to take it where we can get it. Well, I think it was earlier today, or it might have been yesterday. Twitter finally suspended the account of Katie Hopkins, and I mean the fact that she still had one in this laughable, in this era where Twitter laughably claimed that they're concerned, they concerned about hate speech, which they're not. They're concerned about They're concerned about hate speech that is not very popular. If you don't have a lot of followers, you have to. You don't get the. You don't get the. You're not given as much freedom to or sort of carte blanche when it comes to hate speech on Twitter. If you need proof of that, Donald Trump still has his account, so I think that says it all. But Katie Hopkins was back. Now I did a podcast about Katie Hopkins about a year and a half ago, and it was a 20-odd minute podcast, basically going through her career, because to me it was like it was over for her, because she had finally lost, she had finally lost burnt all of her bridges, and she was now reduced to being nothing more than someone on Twitter. She'd been fired from The Sun, The Mail, ITV, LBC. She was banned from South Africa for being racist. I mean, that's almost, that's actually quite impressive, that one. This is, she's advocated shooting asylum seekers and refugees. She's used the language of the Holocaust and genocide when talking about Muslims. She has defended convicted child rapists and slut-shamed their teenage victims. And she has, and this is a woman who basically, this is a woman who came into our lives via a TV show called The Apprentice, the obviously the UK version. She didn't even win. I don't even know. She didn't even come second or anything. She came like fourth, and she has managed, and this was in the mid-2000s, and she managed to forge out a very lucrative and successful, media career as a media pundit, as a journalist, someone who is supposed to be respected and taken seriously. And you know what? It's not even the fact that she said said all of the horrible, fucked up, ignorant, offensive shit that she said. It's the fact that she said it and she doesn't even believe it. It's not even sincere. And I know that might seem like a minor thing, but at least when you're dealing with it's almost like the fact that she got that career because she was insincere. Like, if she'd have meant it, and if people had, if we believed that she meant it, then that would have been that would have somehow, like, she wouldn't have even got off the traps. This is a woman who's so toxic. Like, in 2015, she applied to be a member of UKIP 3 times, and they said no. Okay, so fortunately now, thanks to the defamation case, or the case of slander against that journalist who I forget her name now. I apologise if I get the name, but she was taken to court for slander or libel. I can't remember which one it was, and she had to sell her house to pay off the money that she had to owe in damages and for the legal costs. She said to sell her house. She's lost all of her jobs. She's burnt all of her bridges. Her money's gone. And I just want, and I will say now, this is going to be the last time I ever mention Katie Hopkins. In any context, this is the end. I don't want to have to mention her, right? And I urge all of you out there, don't give her any. I don't care. I don't know where she's going to end up. I don't know where she can go. She's probably going to have to be, she's going to have to resort to her own, private website or whatever. She's doing a tour of live shows at the minute. So if you're out there and you've got some buckets of frozen piss you want to get rid of, then find out where she's playing. Although they're not advertising her shows, which says a lot, really. But yeah, to just stop talking about her, And it's not just her, and it's not about her. It's just the fact that she is an embodiment of everything wrong with the notion of what media is. The fact that you don't even need to you just need to say something that pisses people off, that gets because it's all based on ratings and number of listeners, and it's not based on quality of actual journalism. She's not a journalist. And if there's anything we can start to do, little things going forward, just stop giving, the people like her who say things who say things that are deliberately inflammatory because they want you to go off talking about it. Don't do it. Just walk away. It doesn't matter what she says. It never did. It never should have. Right, so let's just let that go. But Brexit does happen tomorrow, folks. And I'm resigned to it, bordering on some miracle. I'm not gonna, and I'm not even angry. It's like, it's been too long now. It's just been. I'm kind of worried about what we're going to talk about afterwards, but not really, because I know that now people think that the mistake I'm concerned about is for people who are big supporters of Brexit. That that you do realise that after tomorrow, when from 11:01 p.m. tomorrow, now you've got no excuses. Right? If things don't get better. If we don't get all the unicorns and all the pots of gold at the end of the rainbow, and we don't get if things don't get, or if things, let's put it another way, if things get significantly worse as of tomorrow, and it's because of Brexit, you don't have the excuses anymore. You can't blame anyone else now. You've got, this is one of the dangerous things in politics. It's easy to moan and complain when you don't get your way, or when you believe in something that's not necessarily ever going to happen. But the one thing you've got to be careful of in politics is sometimes you get what you want. You get what you want, and once you get what you want, if you've put all your fucking chips on this, and listen, I have never wanted to be wrong about something more in my life, and I don't like being wrong, but I genuinely, I genuinely, because we all live in the same country, folks, If it has a negative effect on me, it'll have a negative effect on you. If it negatively affects you, it means it's negatively going to affect me. No one wins here. There's no winners or losers in this, because we're all in the test tube. Right. But those of you who followed my LBC video, my videos where I listen to LBC callers and such, and if you're someone who listens to LBC, presumably, a lot of you listen to LBC now because of me, and in particular, if you listen to James O'Brien, you will know that there is, that James O'Brien, whenever he's debating Brexiteers, he has this, he talks to them, listens to them, blah 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 blah, and I'm not going to go through all the many hilarious defences or reasons for Brexit that he's been, he's heard, everything from fucking wrapping fish and chips in old newspapers to fucking car supermarkets, in anything like this. But one of the questions he asks is, what law tomorrow, when people always go, we can make our own laws, which we've always been able to do, but he always asks them, what law are you most looking forward? And no one ever gives him an answer. I tell you, like, one guy once said that, there's the EU law against people being able to crush grapes in vineyards with their feet. So if you like, athlete's foot, or you like a sort of woody high note of cheese in your wine, you might get that now. But today, the Daily Express, published an article on their website, express.co.uk, answering James O'Brien's question. Not just once, but 8 times, with an article called "Ridiculous EU Laws Britain Has Been Forced to Accept." Here are 8 of the worst, and I'm going to go through them. Shall we go through them, folks? This is 8 of the worst laws that the Daily Express claims we have been forced to follow, and those of you who are much already clued up on things regarding EU laws or misinformation, all right? Anyone want to put their money? Do you want to guess what the first thing they mention is? Yes, the first one is bendy bananas. I shit you not. The first one is bananas cannot be too bendy. In a widely ridiculed ruling, yes, mostly by knobheads like this. Brussels bosses banned rogue bananas with malformations and abnormal curvature. Okay. And this is the idea, and this was largely put about by Boris Johnson. This is like the ultimate sort of EU myth. Okay, so let's get this straight. Bananas are classified by quality and size so they can be traded internationally. So, you have, it's to do with, it makes things easier. Rather than having random fucking bananas. It's the same way all fruit is sorted. Apples and oranges, all these fruit you buy, all of it. The reason, have you ever wondered that they all sort of look the same size? Right, it's because they've all got to be the same size. Right. Now, quality standards were needed so that people knew what they were buying and the produce met expectations. In other words, because people, funnily enough, don't want to buy a bunch of bananas that are all fucking random. They don't want to buy Elephant Man bananas, right? Right. The EU did not ban straight bananas or bendy bananas or anything. It was a Commission regulation 2257/94 identified certain restrictions for fruits that producers have to conform to in order to sell their produce within the EU, and by malformation they literally mean defects in shape. There were two types of defects in shape: full on and slight. That's it. But thankfully, folks, tomorrow, in just over 24 hours, we will be able to buy random. But of course, this law won't change, by the way, because we're still going to be looking to trade with countries. We're still going to be trading with countries that follow these laws. These are also, bearing in mind, these are regulations that we've had. I'm pretty sure, there wasn't a time in this country when you could just grab a bunch of bananas and what you didn't know what the fuck you were getting. I'm pretty sure. But then, hey, what do I know? Right. So that's that's the first one they go for. The second one, it is illegal to make Stilton in the village of Stilton. The small Cambridgeshire town, named after the famous Blue Vein cheese for being the first place to sell it, is banned from producing Stilton under the EU law. Now, Stilton, or blue cheese, as you may be familiar, it's under the EU law. Stilton can only be made and produced in Leicestershire, Derbyshire, and Nottinghamshire, because that is where the cheese is thought to originate. This now, I don't give a shit. Let's just put this out there, right? Because here's the thing where they lie. They say that it's illegal for them to make Stilton. No, they can. The town of Stilton is allowed to make as much fucking blue cheese as they fucking want. They just cannot call it Stilton. In the same way that you cannot call sparkling wine champagne if it was made in fucking Ireland. It's not. It's got to come from the Champagne region where the champagne fucking grapes are. Right. Now, the town, the Cambridge village of Stilton is allowed to continue making as much fucking blue cheese as it wants. But it just can't call it Stilton. That's it. It can't call it Stilton. That's it. It's the same way if you made some wireless earbuds, you couldn't call them AirPods. Right? You couldn't call them, you couldn't get a new set, you couldn't buy a new set of headphones called Beats by Dre or whatever. You'd have to call. So this is the rule. Now, is this a ruling that matters? Not really. Do you care? I mean, tomorrow when you wake up on February the 1st, is the fact that you can still buy fucking Stilton from Stilton. It's just not called Stilton. It's called Bluebells. That's it. That's the second law. So basically, a cheese, a type of cheese is going to continue to be made in a place, but in a place it's always been made, and as much as they want, it just won't be called that anymore. So, number 3, water does not hydrate you. In 2011, the EU banned drinks manufacturers from claiming that water can prevent dehydration. The EU officials concluded that following a 3-year investigation, there was no evidence to prove drinking water prevents dehydration. Now, this is one of the sort of one that you'll see all over the place. Even to this day, you'll see people mocking this. Interestingly, this is this didn't come out until November 2011 was when this regulation was first, or this ruling in quotes was first came about. Even though it was officially made, it originally came out in February of 2011. So it's almost like they were looking for something to churnalise about. Now, so when you read it, now, first of all, they claim it's a ruling. No, it's not a ruling. It is, and it says this right on the PDF document. Right. The first thing, it isn't a rule. It is a piece of advice, and it says quite clearly, member states are free to interpret as they wish. Right. And they even say so, and again, the people like the Express reported on this, even stating in their articles, obviously right at the end, this is a specific case with specific characteristics. Either way, the final decision is for member states. So this ain't even a ruling, right? But this is what they were talking about, and this is like when you sort of explain it, right? It might sound a bit silly, but this is the first bit, right? Right. The claim was there was a health claim being made. The regular consumption of significant amounts of water can reduce the risk of development of dehydration and of concomitant decrease of performance. Right. Now here's the thing. Drinking water. Now here's the problems with this claim. Okay, you ready? Drinking water doesn't prevent dehydration, and drinking water doesn't prevent dehydration. Now, you might think, what the fuck are you talking about? Well, regular consumption of water doesn't reduce the risk of dehydration any more than saying, if I eat, a sausage roll a day, that reduces the risk of starvation or malnutrition. If I drink half a pint of bottled water while running through a desert in a blistering sun, I will still end up dehydrated. If I've taken 6 ecstasy pills, it does, and I drink 2 bottles of water, that I'm probably still gonna overheat and dehydrate. The key here is you've got to drink enough water as and when you need it, right? You're not going to get that, and you are not going to get from any bottled watered product and that guarantee, right? You can't sell a bottle of Evian, which is half a litre, or even a litre, and sell it on the guarantee that drinking this will keep you hydrated, because it fully depends on the circumstances where you are. Also, dehydration doesn't mean lack of water or being thirsty. You have to get things like electrolytes and like sodium. If your salt levels fall too far, the body can struggle to regulate fluids in the first place. This is why hospitals use saline drips. Right? So this ruling, which wasn't a ruling, which everyone made fun of, even though people were entitled to interpret it either way they want. It was just a piece of advice. Right? That's the understanding, and people can mock it all they want, but I bet they won't be mocking it next to, given the litigious culture we live in, it's pretty likely eventually one day some cunt's going to get sued for that, aren't they? So there we go. So So you're keeping track of this, folks. So we've got bananas, Stilton, and labelling of water. You got that? Okay. So what was the next? What's number 4? What was number 4? The tampon tax. Oh, this is an interesting one. Okay, the tampon tax. Currently, all sanitary... This is in the Express says, currently, all sanitary protection in the UK is charged a VAT of 5%, the lowest rate permissible under EU VAT rules. The government has indicated willingness to scrap the controversial tampon tax, but existing EU laws prevent member countries from introducing a 0% rate on products. Britain will be free to scrap this tax. Scrap this tax, sanitary products as a luxury non-essential item from January the 1st at the end of the... Now, okay. Now, it's interesting that this was brought up not long ago. This was actually brought up a couple of months ago by Boris Johnson. And he claimed in November of last year, we'll be able to cut VAT on things we currently can't under EU rules, sanitary products, you name it. Right. Here's the problem. In 2016, the UK won a promise from the EU to be able to scrap the 5% VAT on sanitary products. At that point, our government decided the new system would be in place by April 2017, which is nearly 3 years ago. Now, after the referendum, sadly, the UK lost most of our influence in the EU and the timetable slipped. The government used its limited political capital for other things. There is no sign that the current Tory government has pushed the issue of the tampon tax in Brexit talks. Right? But the European Commission still published proposals covering the abolition of the tampon tax in 2018. Now, although the earliest date for implementation is January 2022, that's 1 year after, he might end up extending that anyway. In short, there's no reason for us to have this tax anymore. They could have got rid of it 4 years ago. But they decided not to, because because it's very difficult, isn't it, to try and convince people to leave the EU if we're able to scrap a tax that we didn't have to be imposing. Do you ever get the feeling you've been cheated? Yeah. The next one, strict fishing quotas. Oh, fish! Now, this is the classic one about the fish. Now, this is basically just fishing quotas to make sure that basically, the fishing boats that go out there to haul in fish are not raping the sea, and that there are certain species that are put back, and that we can fish. It allows us literally. The quota we have is like the second largest, by the way, the second largest out of all European countries, and it allows us to literally empty 30% of the fucking fish in our waters. And this complaint is ridiculous because all EU countries follow this. Right. So it's basically just and there are arguments that suggest that these quotas, fishing quotas, haven't made much difference. But the other thing is there's no evidence to suggest that dropping them will make any either. So there you go, fish, and let's also not forget that over in his time as an elected European Member of Parliament, Nigel Farage did literally fuck all to help this nation's fishermen or to fight any of the laws, because of course he didn't. Because if he did that, he'd have no boogeyman then, would he? Oh, this is a great one. Halogen light bulbs have been banned. Okay, yes, the halogen light bulbs are banned under the EU. This was the final stage of a European directive, progressively, that seek to ban less efficient light sources, with the aim of improving energy efficiency and cutting carbon emissions across the EU. starting with traditional incandescent light bulbs in 2009. Right? Halogen light bulbs, were found to have used too much energy compared to alternatives like LEDs or compact fluorescent bulbs. They also have a very short lifespan of around 2,000 hours, which is approximately 2 years if you use them 3 hours a day. But who the fuck does that? And also, can I just ask, it's a fucking light bulb. Are there seriously people sat there whose national, who are so incredibly, whose national pride is rooted in so much fucking bullshit that they've been sat in the dark for the last 11 years? You can see, can't you? You know, this is called moving on. Why don't we just fuck it? Why don't we bring back fucking just lamplighters? What just candles in just fire? Just set fire to everything. Let's just walk around with burning fucking with pitchforks and torches. That's what you want, isn't it? Okay, and even if we leave the EU. We're not going to be going... It's not like we're going to be flooded with these fucking light bulbs, halogen light bulbs, because guess what? No one's using them anymore. If no one else is using them, do you think there's going to be a company that makes halogen light bulbs? Light bulbs that are less efficient and don't last as long and aren't as powerful as ones that are, as other alternatives? Do you think they're going to make them just for the UK? They're going to make our poxy, stupid, shitty little fucking light bulb. Do you think that's going to happen? No. It's not going to happen. So light bulbs. Next one. Inches and pound banned as measurements. Now, of course, it's not banned. It's just that, unfortunately, we, in this country, we still use imperial measurements, which is feet, inches, pounds, etc. Now, the problem with that is that 90% of the fucking rest of the world who we trade with don't use that. They use the metric system. Right? It's kind of like how we went round the world, built an empire, and now because we're so important, right? We forced all the other countries to learn to speak English because they had to if they wanted to trade with us. So you had to learn English. We didn't have to learn French or Indian or Chinese. No, you're going to learn our language. That's kind of what this is. Except in this case, we're the ones who have got to accept that. So it's not been banned. We can still use fucking inches and pounds. We still do. It's not like you're going to get a geezer on a street corner selling you a fucking 12... Here's a 12-inch ruler, mate. It's in inches. Yeah, fucking inches, bruv. Yeah. Pounds and ounces, stones for fuck. I mean, for Christ's sake. I mean, are you that fucking... Can you not handle learning something? No, of course you fucking can't. And Brexit will... Again, Brexit won't lead to a comeback for this because we already use that in here. But at the same time, you can use... It's fucking weights and measurements. Who cares? Do you want to trade with the rest of the world? Apparently, you said we were going to be doing much better for trade. Well, guess what? We're going to have to use the fucking same system, ain't we? And the final one, and this is the Express. Today they wrote this. This is the final one. Prunes are not a laxative. This was a ruling that was brought in 1 month after the banning water from being sold as preventing dehydration, which again we've already been over that one. So this was in 2011, and they said that they investigated it and they found the evidence provided is insufficient to establish a cause and effect relationship between the consumption of dried plums or prunes. And the maintenance of a normal bowel. Now, normal bowel functions is not a laxative, is it? Laxative is because prunes aren't a laxative. They can be part of a balanced diet, and there was a time when we used to use leeches to cure things at the doctors, and guess what? Some people probably got cured and swore by him till this day. But here's the problem with this one, right? The problem with this one is that was in 2011. Right? In 2013, 2 years later, right, the EU went back on that and changed their mind. And it was determined that prunes sold across the European Union can now claim they contribute to normal bowel function, as long as they were put down as a daily intake of 100 grams of prunes a day is recommended. Right now, and that was it. 18 months. So this law about prunes hasn't been in effect for nearly 7 years. And it's not even a law. It's just saying you can't label it as laxative. And who the fuck eats prunes? And who the hell cares? Are you going to stop eating prunes? Is the only reason you're eating prunes so you're going to have a shit? You can't find another fucking reason to do this? This is what we've got. This is the best we've got. They've had all this time. They waited till the day before to print this. And this is all they've got. Laws that ain't laws. Outrage about bullshit that fucking light bulbs and pounds and inches and fucking made up fucking made up exaggerated misunderstood laws about fish and prunes and bananas and fucking lies about tampon tax that we don't have to follow and it is just the epitome. This article just is, it's perfect in every way. And it shows that this is the best you've got. And even if all of these things were real, right, I bet if you woke up tomorrow and they weren't in place, you're not going to fucking... if you give a shit about this, then believe me, leaving the EU ain't where your problems lie. There's something wrong deep, deep within. And if you think Boris Johnson and the Tory party and leaving them... If you think that's going to be the answer, then... Well... Maybe one. I hope I live long enough to see the penny drop, although I probably won't. You probably won't live long enough for me to see it either. But I will live long enough to piss on Nigel Farage's grave. That is the one thing every day that makes me want to keep going. So, have a nice Brexit, folks. And I'll see you. I'll hear from you next week. Again, please, if you enjoyed the podcast, please share it around, give it a rating, follow it on iTunes or Stitcher or Spreaker or wherever the fucking hell it is. And if you feel like, if you check out my YouTube channels, and if you feel like supporting my work on here and supporting the podcast and my YouTube videos, please do support me on Patreon and or PayPal. Other than that, thank you very much, folks. And in the immortal words of Edmund Blackadder, good luck, everybody.